optional class. You remember when I introduced this topic, I said two things. One is to again reduce the number of lines of code. The other one is to handle null values. Whenever if you are dealing with a data set, holding null. You remember this data set, tabular column with null values? Guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So to overcome this problem
Yes,
of null, so how to deal with these types of null to overcome null pointer exception? So we have optional class. It's a class. So we have a class called as optional class, which is introduced in 8 and later version to encounter null pointer exception with when we are holding collection of records with null values. The exception is thrown when we try to access an object holding null value. So before proceeding with the operation on my collection value, my optional class provides a method to check if the value is present or not. And we have a method called as present or not. We will use optional class and we will use present. If it is present, I will do sum, or I will do multiplication, or I will do division. If it is not present, simply I'll ignore. Are you making it sense? Whenever if you are traversing collection of value, you can use optional to confirm whether the data is present. If it is present, you do with operation, else you ignore the operation. So at any cost, it will not throw null pointer exception. But there is a high syntax to be followed. So under optional class, we have various methods. The first way is creating an object for optional. You can create an optional class and followed with you can call various methods. Can you see the list? The first method is empty method. It returns an empty optional object when no value is present. Nothing is present in my stream, it returns empty. So off, it returns specified not null values. So off nullable, it returns an optional describing specified value. If it is not null, otherwise it returns empty optional. So get is used to return the value if it is present. Is present is a Boolean method which is used to check whether the value is present in optional or not. Or else, if the value is present, it will proceed with this. If the value is not present, or else what I want to do. So if it is not present, I am going to else case. In else case, what value I want to get. It returns the value is present, otherwise it invokes other and returns the result of that invocation. So mostly we will use present method, else get and empty method. So please take time, analyze this table. Right. So please analyze the table and just look into the methods and its description. Give me 1 minute. Yes, guys. This girl is troubling me a lot today. So let's explore few of the methods in optional. Yeah. To verify if the method does not throw null value, you need to perform the following. Wrap the object with optional clause. So optional of the type address or employee, object name is equal to optional dot of nullable outer dot get address. So what we are checking? We are taking addresses. So out of addresses, we are ensuring that it is not throwing any null values. In our case, we can take what? Employee department, employee name, employee salary. So optional object can be returned only with the help of method to ensure what? Method does not return an empty collection. So always optional is gonna to return whatever the instance we are returning to optional, everything is based on optional method. So I'm gonna to return all my collection. I'm getting all the address and I'm storing in my object OP. Use the method of optional class to check the method returns value or a not null. So further to that, I can call the method is present or not. If it is present, it will enter into if block, or otherwise it will not enter. So by the way, I can overcome the null pointer exception. So by the way, we can also streamline. It is not at all returning an empty collection. Always I have a value. So I'm getting the addresses and I'm storing it my optional object. Further to that, I can use any of the method to check whether it is holding value. It is not holding null. A method can also return an optional. So I can have a user defined method where you can return an optional object of the respective type. See here, please look into the method. I think this method is used to filter all the voter list based on zip code. So I'm defining a method find voter by zip code. I am passing my collection and I am passing my zip code. So I just wanted to check whichever the voters belongs to the particular zip code I want to store. Along with that, I want to store all the data in optional object. Can you see? And I want to return these optional object as a return type. So please listen. It's optional. We can go for void also. So just this method is taking all the voter detail and it is checking pin code and it is returning the respective optional object alone. So optional of the type voter class object name equal to, I'm traversing with all the list stream filter. I'm taking the address. In address, I'm checking the pin code. And if the pin code is matches with this, and in order to retrieve the result, in optional provides a method called as find first. In optional, we have a method called as find first. So whenever if you have a collection of value where I want to find the first element in my sequence, I can use find first.
Ma'am, can you explain that find first again?
Yeah, optional provides find first, find any, find last. So let's assume I have voters with some 100 records. Out of that, 10 records belongs to the zip code. whenever I am passing a collection of records via string, in that it matches with the, here in our case, it is matches with the zip code and it is finding the first element. Depend upon the pin code you are passing, it returns all the voters detail. Find first is a method which will return an optional object. So from my collection, if I want to return back, see what is there in left hand side. My left hand side is optional object. Right hand side is my filter method. Can I assign directly filter method to my optional object? No, it is not possible. In order to convert my right hand side to left hand side object, we will use a method called as find first. So before proceeding with the user defined class, let us have a sample demo on optional with array, a direct array value. Then we will proceed with the same employee object. So let me take number dot stream dot yeah. And first. One second, let me check. I'll check whether the expected output is there with my code. Likewise, we have something called as find any. Find any dot if present. One second. Oh my God, why it is giving me 76 all the time, 0th index? Okay, let's get into more example. See, we have many methods under optional. So I just wanted to start with showing a demonstration on find first and find any. I've taken an existing list called as number. So yeah, I have rejoined within a second. It got disconnected and rejoined. Guys, are you there? Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we have so many
ma'am.
methods and so many functionality associated with optional. So since we had this find first and the question has been arised on find first, I thought let us do a sample program on our collection. Usually we will do this number or string data. So I used this number data, number list. So in number list, applying a stream where you can apply any intermediate operation also. I just wanted to traverse with all the values. So I used map. You can use map, you can use sorted, you can use filtered. The first two case I'm taking all the values as it is, but in the last case I'm taking only the values which is greater than 80. So find first, it returns the first element which you have found with the previous filtering condition or map condition or any functional operation. And what is this get? Where we came across with get method?
Get that value.
It comes under which class? Which interface?
Supplier.
Supplier interface. So I just wanted to get, because it's a single value. One single scalar value, I cannot able to iterate. I know it's a single value, find first. So the first value alone I'm capturing and I'm using supplier because supplier will not, what is the speciality of supplier?
Will not take
It
parameter
will not take
Not take parameter.
input.
but it returns the output. Here the returning will be the first. Same thing I did for any, but I thought any data from my collection will be thrown, but it is throwing me only the first value. All right. So here I applied the filter condition where I am filtering only the values which is greater than 80. So and I am returning first or any, anyway it is going to give 98 because 98 is a only value. Guys, listen, the difference between 25th line and 27th line is here my filter will return a collection. If the collection is exist, so I am checking my filter with the condition is whatever the value I'm holding, it should be greater than 80. If anything is found and if it is present, I'm printing the value. Present will take a collection, whereas find first or find any, it is going to return one single scalar value that you can collect. As I said, various operations we can do with optional. So whatever the tabular column is there in front of you, all the methods you can try, and plenty of ways you can combine your optional, your streams API and your functional interface. Mostly this functional will not come. We will combine your streams and optional in the places to achieve the desired result of our problem statement. So let us do randomly. With the main purpose of optional classes, before traversing with all the value in my collection, I am ensuring that it is holding not null value. We are ensuring not null is there, null is there. So by checking whether it is having null value, then we are proceeding, or by ensuring there is no null value and we are proceeding. I'll do a simple demo on checking the null and not null. Listen. So I cannot have integer value and I can assign null, because integer will not hold null. So null will be appeared only for your wrapper class. All of you got it? So let's assume I am holding null value for my I. So let me hold j, and j is holding some not null values. Shall we check using optional? I cannot apply to primitive type. I can apply only to my wrapper class. So I'm creating an optional object of the type integer. Optional 1 is equal to, so I can call any of the optional class, and everything falls under static method. What is the use of off? Optional.off will throw null pointer exception when I pass any null value. Please look into the tabular column. We have empty method, we have off method. Empty returns an empty optional object when no value is present, when it is empty. When optional is empty, then it is okay. Then it is returning an empty object. What is this off method is doing, guys? Please come along with me for the description. What is this off is doing?
Returning the non-null values.
So it is used to specify only not null value. So whereas if I want to specify null value also, I can use this off nullable. It returns optional when it is not null, otherwise it returns empty object. So always use off nullable rather than off. So let me show you with both off and off nullable. So what will happen to I? System.out.println. Let me call optional and I'm checking whether it is present or not. Or let me check whether it is empty or not. Why it is throwing null pointer exception? Can you see the output? It is throwing null pointer exception in line number 32. Why?
I is null.
Because off method, if you pass null value, it will throw null pointer exception. So you can overcome. I will suggest don't use off, go for off nullable. So off nullable I. So it will not throw exception. If you have a value, it will take the value, or it will take nothing, empty value. So I am holding optional with null value. It is checking whether it is empty or not. No, it is not empty. It is having the variable I, holding whether Optional is present or not? No, it is holding null value. So it is resultant as E is empty true and E is present false. It is not present and it is empty because it is holding null value. What will happen if I change it as J? What would be the output of E is empty and E is present?
False and true.
False and true. Because it is empty? No, it is holding some memory. And whether the data is present? Yes, it is present, true. So we have off method, E is empty, E is present, off nullable. Find first, find any. I'll show you another interesting method. Wait. Integer k is equal to optional 1 dot or else new integer of 200. Tell me what is the value in k. We have another, I can say an interesting method, or else. It returns if the value is present, otherwise it returns the other value. So what is there in optional 1? Is there any value in optional 1?
100.
Yes. So it will take 100. If I execute, what would be the value in k?
100.
100. If in case, if it is not j, I am putting I.
200.
So if you have a value, it will take the respective value, or otherwise it will take the else value which I have passed. So it will take 200. So here boxing is not required. I can directly pass 200 because optional is also belongs to the type integer. So I can use, so if I want to get the value in optional, I can use optional dot get. So just to get the value which is there in my optional. So I don't have any value in optional, so it is throwing me an exception. Instead of I, let me make it as J. So then it will give me a meaningful output. Guys, for your information, I am swapping the value between I and J. So what will happen if optional is holding null? If the optional is not holding null? Based on that, the entire other method operation might get changed. Is empty, off, nullable, get, is present, or else. You try for or else get. You pass whatever the value you want. You can get from the external suppliers. Okay, let us combine our streams and optional. And let's proceed with any of the operation. I'll go to employee name. I know I have nearly how many data? 7 data. None of the data is null. Let me pass some null data. I'll ensure that the previous execution is not, yeah. 1 second. See, I cannot proceed with any of the null value with my existing program because none of my operation will accept whatever the functionality, filtering or checking equality with null. It will throw null pointer exception. Can you see? When you pass a data with null value within a, for any simple operation also, when you try to traverse with all the value, when you are doing a comparison with null, can you see what exception is getting arised? Null pointer exception. As a programmer, I have a control on my program. Do I have a control on this data?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No. I may, so let's assume you are a programmer. You have assigned a project stating that you want to do an employee management system. The company person is going to provide you an employee record. So in that, one person is a newly joined and he has not updated his some of the records. As a programmer, we don't have any control with the data set. We can control our Java code. We don't have any control with the data set. I know all the data is in front of me. Assume like the same data is present in a file or a database. At that time, I don't have a control. In such situation, you have to use optional. All right. So I'm creating another demo2 Java file just to deal with these null values. One second, I'm giving a try. It's required. I'll create one another class holding null. So optional string optional 1 is equal to optional dot of nullable. I'm gonna to get employee list dot okay, then I want to traverse. So I'll complete and then let's have discussion. Name. My God, he's present. It's working. So I'm displaying all the employee names.
Executed, ma'am.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm taking an employee record. I have nearly 8 records. So I'm displaying all the employee names. So with value as well as with null values. So whereas from all the employee values, I want to retrieve only not null values so that in future, if I perform any operation, comparison operation with equals, filtering operation, then in order to overcome the null pointer exception, we can use optional clause. So when you traverse with all the employee and when you print, you will get values including null. Whereas if you use optionals of nullable method, of nullable is only to get not null values. Of is used to get only null values. See, I'm just displaying an employee detail without null. I'm getting only 7 records. Fine. The first block is I'm just traversing with all the value. I'm getting the employee names. Whereas in second block, I'm traversing with all the data in my list. I am using my optional. And what data I'm going to filter? I'm going to take only string data. Optional object equal to optional dot of nullable. So I'm getting the first employee name and I'm checking whether it is null or not. If it is null, it will not store. If it is not null alone, it will store. So it will store the record. I'm checking whether it is present, value is present or not. If the value is present, I'm printing the record. If the value is not present, I don't want to do any operation. This is just an example. In future, if you want to do any comparison or you want to filter based on a department name, or you want to compare with your sorting, to overcome null pointer, you can check whether you are pulling only the not null values, then you can proceed with the operation. Shall I continue with next demo? So initially I'm checking if the null value is present. I'm not at all taking null value using optional. I have 8 employee record. Out of that, 1 is null. I'm truncating null by using optional. Can I replace null with any other value? Let's assume 31 employee is having null. Can I replace with null? Can I replace null with any other value? Guys, you there or not? Shall I continue or we will continue later? The topic, it looks like a complex topic, but actually the logic behind the topic is simple. Adesh, Abhilash.
Yes, please.
So the first operation, what I did is I'm retrieving the only employee record holding not null values. Can I do the next operation? Wherever I have null, can I replace with any other value?
Yes,
So let me make this employee also holding null value. So whomever is having null value, let us replace. So how to replace?
or else.
Very good. Or else I can use. So if I execute the program again, so I have 7 employees, 8 employee records holding 2 nulls. So I'm truncating all the null. So I'm getting only 6 records of having employee name. So what I'm gonna to do is I'm gonna to replace with some standard value. So see here, the next operation is I am gonna to replace null names with some message. I'm gonna to replace null names. Replace name holding null with some constant text.
Morning.
Yes.
Employee not found.
Not like that. Something like not specified, not known. Okay. Again, you traverse with everything and you get the name. So I'm just getting null. Optional 1 dot Wait. So wherever it is getting null, or else I'm just passing the message as not specified. This left-hand side is not required. X dot. 1 second. I'm gonna to replace with the value. So generate setter method. I'll give a try. So by you. So I wanted to set the value for my employee name. I'm just giving a try. So I have added setter method for all the variables. By using the current object, I am calling set employee name. In that, if it is null, I'm gonna to specify with this. I'm not sure.
Ma'am, we cannot directly in or else we can set.
It's working. Yeah, you can put, but
If it's not
can
present,
put.
then set with the not specified.
I didn't get your question. See, we are into this discussion of replacing the value. There I have introduced. I didn't know that whether it has been null or not at the time of initialization. I may get the data from various resources.
What I'm saying is you kept everything inside set. I'm telling just to set for the, if it is null, then set not specified.
And how come it works in your model class? In model class, the purpose of this is to set and get. There I cannot able to do. I may pass any not null values in the beginning. The purpose of set is wherever I want to set the value of the current instance with respective to the value, I can set. I don't know whether I have answered you or the question I have not got. You are telling that at the beginning itself, if the value is a null, you are going to set it as not specified.
No, I'm not saying that, ma'am. You have done
Tell
x
with an
dot set.
example.
You have done x dot set emp name. Instead of doing x dot set emp name
Inside or else.
let it remain like optional dot of none
All right.
nullable, and in else part or else there can be
EMP.
set emp like not specified inside the parenthesis.
Inside parenthesis, what you want to specify here?
Set TMP name as not specified.
What is the
Yes.
purpose? Because this x dot get name itself, it is pulling only the string type. So we need to replace only a static string value, hard coded value. See here, optional dot off nullable. I am retrieving employee name. So if I traverse the data, it will take the first data. If the data is there, it will not come to else. Only after Siddharth, when it comes to null, then it is going to else part. Here I want to specify only the string. I
Okay.
cannot pass any other method. I can use getter method, where the getter method needs to return a string. So yeah, so these are the purpose of getter and setter. Wherever I want to set, I can use setter method, but at the time of object creation only constructor is used to set. Anytime if I want to retrieve the value based on object, I can use get. Yeah, I'm setting the value. If it is nullable, I'm replacing with not specified. So when you execute, so whichever the employee name is null, I am replacing with the hard-coded values not specified. I'm leaving to you. So depend upon your requirement in an application, you can replace. All right. Please look into line number 24, 25, 29, and 30. Okay. Shall I, the previous operation, but don't forget we are dealing with null value. I'm going to repeat an operation which what we discussed in the morning. So I want to fetch and display only the IT department. IT department employee records alone I need to retrieve. So I'm copy pasting the code. Listen, system.out.println filtering details of IT department. So here my list is EMP list. In my employee list, I'm applying stream filter, I'm getting department code, which is equivalent to IT. I'm sorry, it's a string. Whomsoever belongs to IT department, I need to retrieve their name alone. Whatever the operation I did in the morning, I just copy pasted the code. You remember this one line code?
Yes,
First
ma'am.
method, I just copy pasted the code, but the code is resultant as exception, null pointer exception. Why?
We have null value.
Yes, it starts comparing from HR, first record. HR, admin, IT, sales, IT. When it compare IT with null, it is throwing null pointer exception. Again, I'm telling we don't have a control on the data set. We have a control on programming. So in order to overcome this null pointer exception, I need to ensure only I'm going to compare, do a comparison operation for my not null values by using optional class. Shall I?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm filtering details of IT employee with optional so that, see here, I can avoid this null pointer exception. So create an object of optional of the type employee. Here I'm going to deal with employee object. So let's say optional 2 is equal to in my employee list. I am going to apply stream. I'm going to filter.
Filter.
One second. Filtered IT, and I'm gonna to find.
Optional of none.
Yeah, let us first find and then we can check. So let's check one by one. If my optional 2 is, you can check whether it is present, whether it is empty. So I want to proceed only if it is present. Or I can directly print is
Um,
present. Yeah, I'm thinking.
After just IT, we can put that optional of nullable X, like we can set over there only.
Even this line is not required. So I want only so then I need to compare two record. So whichever the name is having not null, that name alone I'm checking my department code. I slightly modify my code, or this might be a simple one. Anyway, the last line will be null pointer exception. Optional of the type employee, optional 2. Wait, so let me get only the names first. So I'm gonna to traverse with my list. So let me get only the names. In my employee list, any logical mistake. See, I want to retrieve only not null values of employee records who belongs to IT department.
Go a little bit down.
Yeah, I'll modify. Let me make it simplified. So I just wanted to compare. Even if I do here, what is happening?
Its employee name. Ma'am, I think it's a problem with the object of optional class.
No. I think I need to modify my employee object in such the way of null.
It could be optional string should be of optional employee because you are operating on employee data set.
Hmm.
You have taken string on the left hand side.
Yes. So I'm traversing, I'm getting only the salary.
It could be also like this optional. What we are trying to is the Boolean method, and we are trying to get.
Wait, give me a minute time. I'll try to resolve. So this line number 34 is powerful. So based on the result of 33, it needs to take only if the value is present. Only the value is present if its employee department will be matched and we are getting the result. Or else, one second, let me try this else block. Else, if it is empty, is empty. Simply I'll print like an empty. This line needs to be corrected. Or I will take my employee salary is also correct. Wait. So I'm gonna to get department name, and the department name is equal to manager. Assume like there is no manager. I am adding a manager, but the manager is holding null record in a name. Set situation. I'm getting the name. Yes. Instead of manager, one minute, it's working. Instead of manager, if I provide sales, there were how many sales? I am not getting. So listen, let me modify string. Hmm. Wait. All right. So requesting all of you to pay attention. So I have converted this to string. The same thing, let us try with employee object. I will change this to filtering details of salary greater than 50,000. So assume like voluntarily I am making any of the salary as null. Anyway, I cannot pass null. Let's see. Optional 3, come along with me. One more try I wanted to make. So here I am getting my salary and I'm checking whether it is greater than 550,000 or not. I cannot pass number. Name starting with H.
And in the if statement,
Yeah, 3.
And in the printing also.
Yeah, 3. See, I just wanted to show you. Let me make it simplified. I don't want to take much time of you. See, as I said, these data sets can be passed from any different type of data. By the way, I have handled employee with all the wrapper class type, integer, string. If you have handled, for example, you remember, I can define my own user defined type in my class. You remember our bookstore example?
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Or employee with address. Yeah, same example, book and employee. So book is holding author class. Likewise, employee can hold one another address class. For that, you need to define a separate Java class as address, and that address can hold any number of records. In such situation, for employee name, for employee department, for address, I can pass null. Nowhere I cannot pass null to my employee ID and salary. That is why I'm restricting my filtering only based on name and department. So I'll make as simplified code. Even I don't want to make much time. If I want to try anything more at advanced, I'll do it myself and I'll share the code in the evening or in the afternoon session. So I have modified my data set holding some null values here and there. I'm having employee name null, 2 nulls, and I have 1 employee department with null. So usually whenever if you are doing for comparison, for example, equals, these are all string. Whenever if you are making any comparison with string methods, equal method starts with, equals, ignore, compare to, anywhere if you deals with null, it will throw a null pointer exception. So even though if I want to do a comparison by ignoring a null pointer exception, you can use optional class. So line number 32, I'm just retrieving an employee department of sales. So so what I need to do, I need to traverse with all my records and every time I want to compare with sales. So by using optional, I can avoid this null pointer. So I'm comparing with sales and I'm storing the record. If the data is present, if it is not null, I'm printing the record. If it is not null, it will not come into my if block at all. By the way, I'm ignoring. So if you take the first optional clause, so I am filtering the department. I am filtering the employee name of IT department. So it starts comparing from all the departments starting from. Did I made any change? So here I made as IT. Oh my God, I'm making it as sales. Okay. So let's assume I want to filter only the records of sales. So if you take department, it takes employee department sales. So sales has been compared, even though it compares with null also, it ignores because of nullable is present method. So sales record, sales department, we have an employee name Prashant. And likewise, I want to compare with the name starting with the letter H. So it is comparing. And if you take second name, Harsh is compared with the condition gets matches and it is returning the name Harsh. By the way, I just wanted to say that in my optional class, it will ignore all my null values. So only if it is present, I'm going to retrieve. If it is not present, it will not enter into the block. By the way, you can avoid null pointer exception. So further to that, if I want to do any filtering or any sorts of operation, intermediate operation with the result, I'm doing it parallelly. And then I'll share the code with you. Let us have an explanation if I add any more intermediate operation with my optional. So listen. So these are the various methods. So they are continuing with the concept demo. Write a program to determine the voter eligible for voting for a given voters list. So voter class should consist of proper address. Can you see we need to eliminate the voter who does not have proper address, which is null value. Is it possible to display all the invalid voters whose address is null? Is it possible to display only the null values?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Is it possible that we have already tried? Is it possible to replace the null value with dummy values?
Yes, ma'am.
Possible.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the name or any of the value is null, yes, it is possible to throw an exception. Depend upon the zip code, we can find the voters list. Assume like we have an voter class and we have an address class. So no worries, you can proceed with our employee object itself. If required, you can add employee address object. In address, you can have street name, city name, zip code, as well as door number. If you have provided any of the null value here, by using optional, you need to truncate it. So just do a sample practice on these optional classes with the existing data we have. with the existing data. So try to find out the record holding null value alone, record holding not null value. If it is null, is it possible to replace with any standard dummy values? That is also possible. So I want all of you to try 2 or 3 optional objects. So that's all. So with this reference, you can complete your today's sprint. So you can directly try your logic with optional with today's sprint. I'm sharing my updated code to you. So I have tried in demo 2.